changed my mind in terms of how you describe animal performance and how you achieve animal performance. But ultimately, we go and we use the holistic management decision-making process because that is the best method I've come across in taking this complex, multi-dimensional situation called nature and the environment, putting it into a linear format, making a decision, putting it all back together again, and carrying on using livestock to improve the situation. So we looked at the animal, and we've looked at her before in terms of the ability she has to reclimate land and do things. And remember, the life in that barrel is similar to the life outside the barrel. So when she goes and defecates, she's inoculating soil and helping regenerate, which everybody thinks is the word that's going to save the world. Big business has hijacked every single name and working that has been put to any operation that is going to help people on the land. And I promise you, regeneration is going to be hijacked by big business. Does anybody not believe me? It's already happening, comes from the front. So whatever happens, do what you have to do. Get selective hearing. Do not waste time listening and trying to convince people who will not change anyway. Don't waste your time. It gets quite lonely, but it gets very, very rewarding. So we continue and we understand what's involved, and it's the soil, it's the grasses, it's animals, and ultimately animal performance. So we go back to a slide we've already seen and discussed, and there it is. We take one bite off the top of most plants. We have to be able to grow carbon, and then the question comes, do we put in irrigation to grow carbon? The cost to put in the irrigation to grow the carbon doesn't guarantee you carbon, because the irrigation, like in our country, we don't have electricity for 12 hours a day. Be careful, people. We are experiencing something that you might have later. I don't know when, but it's not a matter of if, it's when. So we take one bite off the top of the plant so the plant does not stop growing automatically, and you've seen it. I've gone through it in detail as to what actually happens. I try to simplify it. You just start and you monitor as you go, making sure that all along you have got animal performance, and you're watching that cow take the one bite off most plants, and there it is, and that's what happens. And we go back and watch the cows, because not always what the textbook says actually happens on the ground. So we are learning, and inclusion zones help teach us what we can do with our soils, our livestock on my property or our property, with the amount of rainfall we get, because it's all part of the whole, and we manage it accordingly. We grow the grasses or whatever plants are growing there, be they clovers or anything else, and we manage them accordingly to get animal performance and then to plant grass. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a difference in terms of recovery of the grasses when it's been trampled versus having that one bite off?
I would say yes, because if they trample, they are bruised, and it takes time for that. So it might be a hesitation of 3 days instead of a week. So in actual fact, they will come back a little bit quicker than if you took more than one bite. So trampling is better than eating to the ground. Eating to the ground, you will not, it'll take time. That plant will stop growing, and it takes time for it to start photosynthesizing. Good. So we move on. We allow for selection to achieve animal performance that least cost. Now, people, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We know in nature selection makes animals fat. So why now try and do non-selective grazing? Non-selective grazing is going into a situation where you are putting yourself at huge risk. So you go and you do your non-selective grazing, you trash everything to the ground, nobody tells you how much you have to supplement those animals to keep them alive, the cost of that, and then the worst case scenario is it doesn't rain. And it might not rain, depending on where you live, for 3 to 7 years, whatever. And then you have a desert. Now you're trying to fix a desert, but you've got no carbon to work with. It's a disaster. In nature, selection makes animals fat. So we don't reinvest the wheel. We understand that. It's trampling that puts the carbon down. So we get non-selective trampling within the herd of these animals with the predator-prey relationship, treading down the grass, getting the carbon in and on the soil, and I've explained all that to you, and we just start doing it, and the results will come. So again, we go to that picture, which I keep on having on the screen, and I know dreads those slides, but unfortunately they're part of the story that I can tell to reaffirm to you, you do not need to produce any more seeds. The seeds are there, but to get those seeds to germinate is another story. So we need livestock. So livestock plant grass. Without livestock, you're not going to change anything. So get on with it. Put livestock on, but they've got to have food. Now, if you've got a desert with no food, you've got a bit of a problem. But that's another story for another day. So we go, and I went to a course with a fellow called Dr. Dick Dillon, and he had huge inflammation, and I'll give you some of that information. Sadly, it's been taken off the internet. It's no longer available to everybody, but this is what he did. So he measured the amount of energy available at soil surface level for the average latitude of North America. He measured and put on a web graph, and there you have it. In May, you've got the most amount of energy recorded at soil surface level. Units of energy, all from the sun, free and for nothing. So he measured those, and he's plotted it on that graph. And if you can interpret the web graph, it's in the northern hemisphere. It is straightforward to read. I'll leave it up there for a minute, or not quite a minute, but a few seconds for you to absorb what's going on there, because you need to remember this when we get to the next slide, because it is of utmost importance for you to get the right time of calving. Did you understand the word calving? To make sure that you are utilizing free energy to set the wheel turning for time and management on your ranch. Obviously, I pushed the right button. The silence is golden.
Question. In the case of the drought that Greg's going through, was that shifted when the rain comes?
Don't complicate the issue. Listen, get me to finish doing what I'm doing or presenting what I'm presenting, and you won't have a question.
What is an NEM? I didn't hear that part.
It's a unit of energy. Keep it simple. Unit of energy. You don't need to know all the nitty-gritties. Right, we go to the next slide. He then put on a web graph. Sorry, you've got to look around me, and I'm rather large. You know, you might have to move your chair.
Good.
Okay. He put on a graph the amount of energy required by a lactating cow from the time she calves all the way through the year to reconception, all the way through to her next calving. That's what it looks like. So one is when she calves, irrespective of date. We come to the rest of the story a few slides down. We superimpose the two graphs, one on top of the other, understanding that 80% of the fetus growth takes place in the last 2 months of pregnancy. We also take note that the condition of the cow at calving will dictate the number of cattle that will reconceive. I tell you that now because everybody's worried about reconception. I will tell you reconception is irrelevant in the next breath, but you choose which direction you want to go. So we superimpose them, and there you have where the red line is above the black line. There is excess energy from the sun, free and for nothing, to put fat on the back of a cow. Fat is energy. And if you look at that, she's at peak condition when she drops that calf. Now, what is that going to do? One, she doesn't have to leave the calf. Because she's got this excess energy on her back, she looks after the calf. She doesn't have to go off and graze. The dissolving of that fat gives her enough moisture, she doesn't even have to go off and drink. She looks after the calf until the calf can move and go with her. And then there's a dramatic drop in the first month in terms of the requirement. Thirdly, which I have not mentioned yet, that fat is extremely important for colostrum. Am I pronouncing it correctly? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Good. For the colostrum, for the calf. Because the colostrum is the template for the life of the calf. If your animal is not in the condition to be able to supply the calf with colostrum, that calf is going to be a dinky for most of its life and will probably only reconceive, I beg your pardon, conceive for the first time at 6 years of age. Now guys, I'm talking from experience here. I'm not just telling you a story from a textbook. So if your calf does not get enough colostrum and the right quality of colostrum, it's going to be a dinky. And you understand why when I start putting up onto the biological calendar marketing of animals, you get rid of that dinky because it's never going to do anything for you. The quicker you get rid of it and put it into cash flow, the better it's going to be for you. Any questions about that graph, people? You're welcome. We can spend a bit of time on discussing this because it is important. Yes, ma'am.
Is the cow rebred at the end when it gets back to 1?
Yes.
What was the question?
Is the cow rebred, excuse me, is the cow rebred when we get back to 1? Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I've heard that the peak nutritional needs are at peak lactation. How does the peak lactation fit into those needs?
I'm not prepared to answer that because I don't know enough. But this is information that came from Dick Dibben, and he was a scientist who went into extension service with the government, and he was a very practical guy. And the notes he wrote was from experience, like I talk from experience, and these are what he told us was fact. Okay. So I'm not equipped to argue that or suggest anything else. Okay. Yes, sir.
Is this graph downloaded from USB? Did you download this graph onto the...
Yes,
on there? Okay.
it's all there, people. Yes, sir. You're right. Good? Yes, sir.
So this would indicate you want to have your baby June. Like you said,
I don't know. We'll look for the biological calendar. Oh, wait. Don't jump the gun. Yes, sir.
Would you mind backing up one slide?
Sorry?
Would you mind backing up one slide?
Sure.
Thank you.
Good. So we now go to a linear format that we as humble humans can understand, and we put it on a worksheet. So this is a financial worksheet which we take and we divide the squares. You can see we put the classes of animals on the left hand side. Cows, I beg your pardon, calves, heifers 1, heifers 2, cows, bulls, and bull's a bull, or whatever age he is. And then steers 1 and steers 2, because I'm now using those animals with wings that have come down from heaven just at the right time of the year to eat the spare grass that I've got. And we move on accordingly. So we've divided the squares, as you can see there with a pencil line. We go to our cows and we write in orange when the cows are going to calve. And note, these cows are calving in 1 month. So we fill in 1 month, and that is when my cows are going to calve. And if I know when they're calving, I know when the bulls go in. You go to a bulling chart, and that is the green, and you go in the square below the numbers there. So we go back to the calving, the orange, and if you go up to calves, you'll see in the square there 1. It means the calves at that time are 1 month old. People, this is part of the curricula for holistic management, but for some unknown reason, certified educators in this country don't seem to teach this. Without this, you can't fill in the livestock production worksheet and anything else that might lead to the financials. So I spend a lot of time on this. It's important. It's extremely important. It can make or break you. So there's the calf of 1 month old, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Up to the top there. There is 7. And we wrap around to 8, 9, 10, 11. And at that month of the year, all animals change classes. Calves become heifers 1 and steers 1. Heifers 1 become heifers 2 cows, etc. Because when they reach the anniversary, they change weight and they change class and they change value. So you'll see there, we're changing, and I'll take a simple one. Calves at 11 months go to heifers 1. Okay, which is 12, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, etc. Changed classes, changed weight, changed value. And so we go on, and when a heifer 2 gets to 35 months, she goes to a cow, which then you just put plus. All animals here change class. A calf at 11 months will then go to a heifer 1 at 12 months. And a heifer's 1 at 23 months will go to a heifer 2 at 35 months. Once you go older than that into a cow, you just put a plus, because a cow then is residual. If you send it to slaughter, you'll get slaughter value for it. Or you'll, whatever you, even somebody else to buy it for breeding, will only pay slaughter value. Okay, so now I've told you that 80% of the fetus growth takes place in the last 2 months of pregnancy. I draw a red line because not only that is the fetus growth taking place in the last 2 months of pregnancy, but the condition of that cow at calving will determine the reconception rate. So we draw that red line because that red line will dictate and indicate to me that animal performance needs to be optimal at that time. So we carry on, it's optimal until we take the bulls up. So we draw a red line there and we box that area off, because during that area you do not take vacations, you do not leave the property, because you need to make sure that that animal has enough nutrition. Remember, I've sold to you, if you buy any open cows, 90% to 99% of the time, it's nutrition and not a DNA or a genetic problem with the animal. The animal might be large, so it takes more energy to do all these functions, and that's why we tend to look for smaller animals, because maintenance energy requirements are less in smaller animals than bigger animals. So we go on, and this is why we calve in a month, in 30 days, because wild animals all calve in a very short space of time, so that when the predators come along and eat the calves, which they're going to do, there are so many calves that they can only take a percentage of them. And a higher percentage is left behind because they're all coming at once. But you are humans and different, and you've taken nature by the throat, and some scientist has told you if you leave the bulls in, you'll get more calves. It's potentially a lie. But if you extend that orange or the bulling another 30 days, all of a sudden it increases the time that you need maximum nutrition. You're putting yourself under stress. So then you want to expose your cows to the bulls for another 30 days, and we are now exposing the cows at 90 days. And if you were to record the conception of those cows, you'd find less and less cows are actually giving birth in the last 30 days. And as somebody spoke earlier, some people have a cutoff date and they sell those cows, because when you're comparing or weaning a calf and there's a difference of 3 months in the age of those calves, it makes a difference. And always the older calf is going to be doing better than the others. Hold on. So we move on, and we've got this line, which I've got for my animals in Africa, because I have to dehorn them. So they come into the pens, I dehorn the calves, I brand them. I've got to brand at a very young age, 2 months, otherwise the calves get stolen. But not only that, we have to inoculate the cows for anthrax. And it's the one time of the year that the cattle go into the pens. So my herd, which was quite a large number of cows, were calving. As they calved, they were left behind and the herd moved forward. And I got to 100 cows with their calves behind. I put them together and they moved as a herd until the calves were 2 to 2.5 months old. They could fit into the crawls, and it was a day's work to dehorn and brand 100 calves and not feel stressed. That is now the beginning of the main herd. As we calve, the big herd reduces, the main herd with cows and calves starts growing, getting bigger and bigger, and you prioritize grazing because they are the ones that need to get the best grazing to reconceive for the next year, and we move accordingly. So we've done the dehorning, and then later we look at our animals, we put the bulls in, and hopefully the cows reconceive. Here I'm actually making 15 and 16-month-old heifers. In this country you can do it. I've said to you that your soil is good enough for us in Africa to use your soil as fertilizer in Africa. We cannot do that. We only mate our heifers at 27, 28 months for the first time, because we cannot capture enough energy, bricks in the grasses to get our animals to conceive at that time. They are immature. Hang on, I've got a question here. I will ask you now. Which you had a question?
Just wondering, the heifer 1, heifer 2, the reason you separate, is that just the value, or that's just the value, and then after heifer 2, it just goes to
cows.
Slaughter cows?
Cows, yeah. Okay. And also that I run them all together, but for purposes of finances, I've got to separate them. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a general range of a brick's breeding that gives you kind of an idea?
Can you speak up a bit, please? Sorry.
You mentioned that the bricks that you deal with kind of shift everything down.
Yeah.
Is there a window of a bricks that's likely to be that dividing line?
Yes, you shouldn't be below 8 bricks. Yeah. The higher you are, if you go to 12 bricks, you hit it on the head. Yes.
Just for a bit of clarity, the idea is to, before you put the bulls on with the cows, you want to make sure that those cows have ample nutrition and energy to be bred back, correct?
Correct. So you're looking at maximum energy capture, and you time it at a time for your property, and you think of latitude will affect the timing, altitude will affect the timing. So you take into consideration, but when you're starting out, you start out with something that is workable and you monitor. And when you want to shift the date of calving or putting the bulls in, you do it by 2 weeks and not more. And 2 weeks is enough for your finances not to cause a wreck. If you go to a month and more than a month moving your bulling time, you could run into a financial wreck because you're not getting an income when you expect it. Yes, sir.
I'm risking some pretty intense derision. Is there any justification for calving with fescue in Missouri in the fall because the quality is good then?
I've got no problem with that, and that's one of the things that you've observed and you take note of. So you draw a biological calendar with the existing date of calving at the moment, because you've deduced that it's best to calve in the fall because of fescue. I've got no problem with that whatsoever, and thank you for that question, because it's opened people's minds to the fact that really, I don't care when you calve. But if you live up top in North Dakota and further north, and you are calving in December, I don't mind calling you an idiot.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions there? Yes, sir.
More of an observation, but I live in Missouri, and I've had this problem. And I've talked to my vet about it, and your graph is really awesome in that it points out that the perfect time to calve is May. And we talked about that, and that is 100%. I think everybody will say that. The problem for us in Missouri, and everybody needs to think about this too, is when do you put the bull in for that? That's right in the heat of the summer, July and August. And what our experience in Missouri has been is that the bulls don't breed when it's hot.
Because you don't have South Pole bulls.
That's probably true. And I'm not going to. I'm going to stay nice. But that is a problem in Missouri.
Don't be complaining then.
This sounds like a competition. I better get something smart to say. But I won't. I respect my host. Yes, sir.
He's got the microphone, so I'll let him have the last word.
No, it can be an issue. I mean, when it's hot, you're asking a bull to breed in July when it's 105 degrees and they're black-hided, you got a problem. And so, yeah, it's something I would be thinking about if I ran black-hided animals. But folks, we left the bulls, and I told you the wreck we had. I'll never do that again, but I do like the April May calving for something I just got from me. And I've been listening to him for gosh knows when. I don't know if y'all caught that or not. When he talked about that what's that next 30 days costing you? You're leaving your bulls in for 60 days. What's that extra 30 days of calving costing you? You got to keep that nutrition up for 60 days instead of 30. That hit me like a stone in the back of the head while I was doing. Like, darn it, that's it. And you know, Isaac and I have been talking about this, and he reconfirmed it for me. We really need to be focusing on 30 days.
That was my question for you. Are you willing to?
Well, we've been talking about it, and I think that just pushed me over the hill right there. Yep.
Oh, but it's a South Pole that can come.
Well,
Yeah.
South Pole does 21 days.
Sorry, at the back. We just finished the back one, and then we'll come forward. Yes.
The web graph you showed about when the most energy is available, that I understood that was kind of an average for the North American continent. Is there any resource we could find that for our particular spot in North America? Would our local agriculture guys even have a clue about that, or where can we find that information for ours?
No. I don't think they've heard of this stuff.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Dick Dibben's fallen off the perch, and his wife has withdrawn all the information on the internet. So I've got the information. So I collected, I went on his course and I got all the information. And when I came from the Southern Hemisphere to his course, I had to send him my information, my latitude and where I lived, Southern Hemisphere, etc. And he sent back a rating in terms of the option of getting 100% reconception rate and when I needed to start calving. So remember, I'm in the Southern Hemisphere, so it's exact opposite to you. And he recommended that I start calving on the 24th of December, which is in the middle of summer, and somebody was talking about mating in the heat of the year. So our heat of the year is on the 24th of December in the middle of our summer. But you know, all the relatives from all over Southern Africa used to come to our place because we as rancher farmers don't pay for anything. And they all congregated there, and I thought, oh, we got a social wreck here, we got a problem. But ultimately it was the best thing I ever did, because at that time I'd already started using my own bulls, and form follows function, and I did not get any calving problems because I was using my own bulls. There was no heterosis, and I've never looked at my cattle calving again. It's just, if they calve, they shouldn't be alive. You've got to give something to the predators. So it simplified my life, and it's worked extremely well. So by calving in the middle of summer, I'm now mating in the fall, which is getting cooler. The semen is more viable, the bulls are more active, and so it goes on. And I promise you, there are no South Poles in my country. There should be. They would die.
I do have a question. I'm going to throw it in front of all of you. For those of people that, let's just say you are keeping your bulls in for 60, 90 days, whatever the time period out here, but your goal would be to go to a 30-day. And would this be, I mean, to keep from having a real economic wreck, and let's just say you put your bulls in for 60 days, and then take them out. And then that fall, when you bred check, only keep the ones that were first period bred in the first cycle. Because otherwise you're going to be selling a bunch of open cows. So you could be selling late bred cows, but they're not in your window that you want. I don't want to sell a bunch of open cows, but if they were bred, they'd bring more money.
You can do that. It's not a problem. But ultimately, that 30-day calving period is where you should aim for. And you can do it gradually. So go up, take a week at a time. Over time, you'll get to 30 days.
A week at a time.
A week at a time. That'll work for you. Yes, sir.
So by what you're saying, I'm trying to get this. I'm a small operation. I don't have a lot of land, but I don't want to have multiple herds. So if I put my bull in, like I plan on putting my bull in June. Now we're just sitting here talking. We're probably trying to push it to July, which means I still have now got 2 different paddocks going. But I only have 35 head of cows. So do I put my bull in with them for a month, at 60 days pregnancy check, and then if everybody's pregnant, then put the bull back with them. I mean, I only have one bull. I'm trying to keep from, I mean, most economical for me.
And having multiple herds.
Correct, because I only have so much grass. And trying to get onto this rotational first bite and all that stuff, I mean, what do you do there? Is it, because for me, it's better to have one herd. I can get the 30-day rest period easier than.
Can I answer that? Okay. So you're on the right track, but you're starting at the wrong end. So start on the nutritional side. Make sure your animals have got good nutrition, vegetative grass, and a rising plan on nutrition. The weather's getting warmer, things are happening. Everything is for the better. You put the bulls in, and they could conceive in that time, but don't limit yourself to 30 days out of the cold. I said to you, go back to your traditional mating time and reduce it by a week a year. Guys, it all goes back to financial. Do not shoot yourself in the foot, because that's what everybody else is doing, wanting you to shoot yourself in the foot, because Ian said, if you ask me, I'll deny it. So start from the nutritional side, move forward slowly, have confidence in what you're doing, because you're observing those cows and you can see the condition, how it's going. They'll be slick, they'll be shiny, they'll be happy cows, totally comfortable in the pens, no walking around bellowing and being unhappy. Okay. Magic. Sorry, I'll come back to you. Yes, sir?
Just a quick question. If you want to condense the time to 30 days, like what you're talking about, are you just control it by nutrition and then more bulls?
Not necessarily more bulls.
You gotta repeat the question. I can't hear it on the back.
Are you controlling it by nutrition, or do you put in more bulls? No, you do not need more bulls. A bull can do easily 40 cows without a problem.
So how do you condense it then?
The time. You do it, you make it a week shorter. Slowly. You remember I said slowly. Don't go in there and change it to 30 days overnight and you've been doing 90 days mating. We're talking past each other here.
Yeah, so the bull, if he could do 40 cows, right, and you put him in for 30 days with 40 cows, shouldn't he take care of the job?
He should be taking care of the job, yeah.
Okay.
And he doesn't need testicles this size.
What Ian is saying is if you're doing 60 days, don't go to 30 days the first year.
Okay.
1 week. Reduce it by 1 week.
I'll come back to you. People, I just want to say this now because I might forget to tell you lots, and I've forgotten to tell you one thing about grazing, your recovery period in the winter, but I've dreamt about it all night and I've worried about not telling you, so I won't forget now. But the other thing I don't want people to do, or I would rather people didn't do, is to call a vet in to pregnancy test. If a cow's not pregnant, she's not pregnant. I'm in the business of producing more grass. I've told you how. So if I'm producing more grass, I don't need to get rid of that cow if she's open. I want to use her kinetic energy, symbiotic energy through the next 6 months to improve the soil, to plant more grass, to prepare it for the next season. So she stays in the herd until the middle of summer when the cows are calving, right? They calve, she doesn't have a calf at foot. I haven't paid a vet to tell me she's not in calf because she hasn't calved. But not only that, she is bed fat because she's been coasting along like a steer, harvesting all the energy, putting it on her body, and she is fat. And that is the best price for a fat cow in any country in the world, the middle of summer. People have got nothing against vets, but why send the money to town? You don't need to. Wild animals don't get pregnancy tested, so we don't need to pregnancy test. That animal is a wild animal because she hasn't calved, is too fat. She can't run away from the predator. She's done.
You haven't seen the
You act as the predator, and we're not fools enough to let a predator take it. We put it on the market and we make money. Yes, sir. Where's the lady first? Sorry.
Can a cow be too fat to breed back?
Yes. Yes. Don't get them too fat. They need to be good. Yes, sir.
So Greg mentioned this bull can do 21 days, and I read that Tom Lassiter got it down to 22 days. Is there any reason or difference between 22 days and 30 days?
Preference, quality of life, holistic goal.
Yeah, don't hone in too far.
Nothing nutritionally or
He's
financially?
perfectionist, or don't
No.
hone.
Yes, ma'am.
This is more a question for Greg. I understand how you can tell which cows don't have a calf on them, but how do you do the same thing for sheep?
So we take the lambs off, and they're born in May. We do all our lamb sales the last week of August. That's when we sort out the lambs. We get a count of our ewe lambs or ram lambs. We go through the ewes, and that's when we call. So any ewe that doesn't have an udder, or any ewe that's gotten thin that doesn't have an udder, that's what we call. We get rid of them, just sell them. Because the ewe that's thin in August, and she hasn't had a lamb, she's not going to be magically fat by October. Now what she done, she's ate 2 months of your grass that you could have been feeding a good ewe. So we get rid of all our calls in August, the last week of August. Get them off your farm. They're just eating your winter grass.
You know, you two just contradicted each other.
That's what we do here.
Yeah. You're telling us to call the sheep.
Now, you told me, now listen, when I got rid
He's
of them,
talking
I got rid
sheep
of
and
them.
I'm talking cattle.
Well, I got rid of them in the fall. I know in the fall my grass is precious because I got to buy hay if I don't have any grass. He's talking if you got excess grass, keep those cows, put the weight on them and sell the fat.
Yeah, but he's in Africa with the southern hemisphere. We're in the northern hemisphere.
Makes no difference.
Cows are eating
You make it too complicated. Yeah,
He doesn't
overthinking
understand
it.
context.
Fat cows, sell them. Fat sheep, sell them. If they're thin, sell them.
Okay.
Pretty soon he sold
Can we
everything.
go on?
So the ideal, but the ideal.
Right. So we go on and tell you more about what's happening here. So we look at our animals, and here our heifers, if they conceive at 15 and 16 months, they've calved at 24, 25 months. At 31 months, they're starting to take strain because we're going into the fall here in December. Okay, and it's in winter now in your country. And we need to wean that calf to let the heifer gain some weight because she's getting too thin. The calf is taking milk from her, and we put a nose ring on to prevent it suckling. We leave it in the herd. So then we come to February, March. Here in March, we wean all the calves. And remember, it's that time of the year that you're starting to get growth, and you're wanting those cattle with wings, and there you've got a herd now of steers, and you've got extra heifers, and you graze them through until you watch the rainfall, and you decide whether you need to sell them or keep them or whatever you do. You have bought time and you've created options, and the more options you have, the better it is, the better decision you're going to make. And that's what it's all about. So we then move on and we talk about when do I sell. So here it is, and we're talking about, why is this not moving? I turned it off by mistake. Where do you turn it off, Chris?
Will it advance? Advance the slide.
There it is. So the yellow line is marketing. So here my heifers have gone from calves to heifers 1. At 12 and 13 months, those dinkies, I sell them. And if I can identify the mother at that time, I sell the mother as well because she's produced a dinky. She's not form follows function in terms of your herd. You can sell her then if you so wish. Here at 26 months, these heifers, they should have calved, and you can cull them a bit heavier here, so you're selling heifers. And cows, because she hasn't got a calf, you're selling cows. Now you kept your steers, and I was selling my steers off grass, finished. So here they are, the dinky calves are going to do nothing. So I sell them because they're required for cash flow. And I then go on to the next sale, which is the first ones, the smaller animals, the early maturing animals will fatten at 26 months. I sell them off grass. And so I sell right through 26, 31, all the way to 35. And you've sold them before the required time to sell them because of Crohn's disease. Not Crohn's disease, mad cow disease. Any questions? So you can do that for yourselves. You adjust and you adopt and you adapt and you work it for yourself, and it'll change probably for 5 years, and then you'll settle down to a routine where you've perfected the time that you are going to calve and conceive and market and how you're going to do things. And then you can start adding things to help you make a better decision. And instead of putting the legend here, you put it on the back of this piece of paper, and you use these spaces for cash flow. You put in the months when you need more money because of the cash flow. You built up a history of when you spend money or when you buy supplements or bales or whatever you do. And it helps you. Everything is on a page for date and time, and it's your biological calendar. Any questions? Yes, sir.
If you already have a herd that's on a 30-day calving season, but you wanted to move it up a little earlier, would you also do it a week, a year, just like if you were trying to reduce your calving season?
You change the date and time a week, no more than 2 weeks a year.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So you're saying you sell those dinky calves and you sell the mothers if you can identify them. How are you identifying the mothers in 1,000 head of cow with no ear tags?
You just take the calves out, and put them in a small pen at night. Next morning, let them in back in the herd, and poof, there's the mother. People, I don't buy tags. If I make a mark on an animal, it's with a hot iron. Period. Yes, sir.
This may be a little off, but when the bulls are off, you've got 2 herds, and on day 1 you said all the animals deserve the best grass. I just wondered if both of you can kind of talk about how to work those 2 herds when the bulls are off the cows.
So the bulls are taken off the cows, and if you are buying bulls, you put those bulls in rough paddocks that are not desirable for mating or for cows and calves to be. It might be a steep mountain, and you leave the bulls there. You stock them, and it becomes, I don't like the word sacrifice paddock as such, but the bulls stay there. So that's when I started looking at wild animals and saying, oh, but they do not bring in new genetic material. And I started using my own last year's bull calves as this year's bulls. And so ultimately I ended up in a situation where, because you are selling bulls to a person who's just sold this magnificent 10-year-old bull who looks good, he didn't want to then buy a bull that hadn't matured yet. So I had to run them for another year. Remember, I used them all last year's bull calves as this year's bulls. I selected 100, 200 to sell as bulls. Okay. The others I castrated and they were back into steers, and I'd had options to market them. The bulls ran as a herd because they were the best looking animals. I'm now selling to conventional people who wanting bulls, and over a period of time I got to the stage where people were sending their trucks without even coming to look at my bulls and just saying load 20, 25 bulls. But it was on the condition that when they offloaded the bull, if they didn't like the bull, they sent it to the slaughterhouse and came and fetched another one, because I guarantee my bulls. If they didn't want the bull, I don't want the bull, so just send it to slaughter.
So the sacrificial paddock, is that just the same paddock that all the bulls go to, or is there any kind of rotation?
No rotation, because they're so few in compared to the size of the paddock. Big selection, not good for the soil or for the grass, but for management concerns, it fits the land. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we rotate ours. We don't rotate them twice a day. We just rotate them once a day. But we have a bull. We got another farm that we lease, and that's where the bulls stay. And it's worked pretty good. Those bulls, when they went on that stockpile, and we took them out of the cow herd and gave them their own food and their own paddock instead of maybe chasing a cow or something. Now they're focused on eating. They really put on some weight. So. Yeah, it costs us a little bit because now you got two herds. It's another labor source to go move those bulls. But it did grow them out nice. Yeah.
So you move the bulls then?
Yeah.
There's more than one way to skin a cat. They're giving you tools and giving you options, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
Yes,
works
sir.
for one person may work better for somebody else.
Yeah.
So now, do you move that? Do you change that paddock from year to year, from different locations on your place? It's kind of a disruption.
If I felt like it. You must remember, I haven't got numerous farms.
Right.
I've got one farm, one ranch. It might be a bit bigger, but yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
One thing I'll mention about the bulls, folks, is we used to buy bulls every year. We'd go to the South Pole Field Day, we'd buy a bull, we'd try and get the best one they had, and if I saw somebody that had one for sale, I'd go buy it and bring it home, and it just seemed like the bulls that we were buying never did measure up to the bulls that were born on our farm.
How long did it take you to realize that?
I don't know, I'm a slow learner, probably 3 years.
You're a slow learner, it took longer than that.
Probably 7 years, give me a break. Now, this guy was there in the fall one year, and we had, it was springtime, it was breeding season, and we had Big Red and Big Nuts, and they were out there and they were beautiful bulls. I'm sitting there leaning, looking at
He was another of these bulls, guys. They were South Poles and they were the best
seen a bull
bulls you
look
could
like
have.
that. Well, Greg, they're good bulls. He said, right off, and he said, darn axe, and he said, you need to sell Big Nuts. I'm like, I'm not selling Big Nuts. It's the best bull we've ever raised. No, you need to sell that bull. And he said, Big Nuts is a good bull. He's got a son in the herd that's as good as he is or better, or he's not a good bull. Take the money. Big Nuts is 3 years old. Takes the money.
That was the name.
And he said, you sell that bull, go buy 3 to 4 bred cows with that same money. Now you've got 7 or 8 animals instead of 1. And he said, look at him. Big Nuts is standing under the tree and all the young men are chasing the heifers. And he said, did you ever see a young man miss a chance? Well, no, probably not. Those young bulls are doing all the breeding. So we sold Big Nuts and we sold Big Red. I didn't tell you, and I did it till the next year, but I sold them. And it's the best thing we ever did. So if you're going to keep a bull past 3, you can expect to get less money for them because they're older, they're getting heavier, thicker. We've kept bulls till they were 7, but when we did that, that bull finally, his foot went out on him. And then you sold the bull for a hamburger. So, yeah, we like using them till they're 2, and then we sell them.
Guys, that's not quite the story, but I think it's time to get to the break. I've got some slides later which might interest you in the same vein, and I'll tell you the true story. Do you want to break?
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
You're welcome. Greg, do you want to break now?
I don't know, it's Jan. Can y'all check see if Jan's ready?
Sorry, I'm anticipating the
Sometimes
wash.
I release and she says, well, I wasn't ready for a break.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
sir,
sir.
on the
Sounds
back.
to me like Greg's scared of Jan.
No,
We were lost.
On the latest video, you show ripping out cedars, donate going to town on the skid steer, and you say you're going to put seed down. I was wondering if you'd do an experiment for us who have all got this question of will the seed bank work? Would you put a portion of that dirt and just put hay on it and no seed, so we can see a comparison?
Oh gosh. Didn't they do that on my farm?
Can you repeat the question?
All right, I might do that for you. Only you. The question was, we got Johnny over there going to town on these cedars. Matter of fact, he was over there yesterday. And, yeah, he's really making a new place out of that over there. His question was, just for, you might say a control sample, go out there and don't put any seed where he took the cedars out, and just unroll hay. And, you know, put hay on it to keep it from eroding, and then go ahead and do your other process of putting the seed down to see the comparison. Is that the question? Yeah. All right, I'll do that on a small area. Folks, if it's not broke, don't fix it. What we're doing is working. I mean, and fescue seed is 60 cents a pound. You know, it's not like I'm paying $5 a pound for it.
Send your money to town.
Yeah, I'm sending my money to town tonight, James. You may save me a ton of money if it works. I don't know. We'll try it. We'll try it.
Hey, Greg, we did that on green teas, remember? We never put seed on that, and it didn't come up.
It didn't come up with a flip. That's right. I forgot about that. Yep. We did green tea. I won't tell you why we named him green tea. But he left the community. We got that farm, and we went out there and took out all the brush, and all we did was put down hay. And the boys did a good job. They really covered it, but we didn't get anything. No. No. Now, I'm talking immediately. It didn't come up. But now today, this has been 3 years ago we did that. That whole farm's covered with grass. So, yeah. But there wasn't anything to graze that first year because we didn't put seed down. When we put the seed down, beautiful. It looks like a lawn out there. Yep. Just a,
What's your grade of fescue?
20 pounds per acre. Yeah. Yes.
Just so I'm clear, you're talking about exposing cows 30 days or 60 days a year?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So, I just want to make sure I was getting that right. So, you're going to be running that extra curve. You've been doing it 7 months.
Yeah, we put them in July. We don't take them out till March. I like the one mob theory, just having one mob of cows. But again, what we can do is the ones that calve in April, when they first start calving, after that, just sell all those. Don't keep the ones that calve later. Yeah, just sell them. Yes, ma'am.
What age are your bulls that you turn in? Like, what's the youngest?
What's the youngest bulls we turn in? Probably 14 to 15-month-old bulls. A bull is 12, even a 7-month-old bull, if he's kind of, filled out, he can get the job done. I sold some heifers to a guy. They weren't mine. They're up in North Missouri, and this guy bought them in Indiana. He sent me a picture of them, one of them calved, and they were 7 months old when we sold them to him. So one of those 7-month-old heifers got bred by her herd mate because there were 7-month-old bulls in there. So it can happen. It's not real frequent, thank goodness, but it can happen. You and then you.
I'm hearing mixed signals on the lane on sowing grass. You talked about you laid some seed down, but you've also talked about unrolling hay.
Yeah, I do both.
You do the seed and then the hay?
Yeah, the hay's to keep the soil covered. Right here, we're in a drought. If you put seed down on that ground after the Johnny's dose, it's just going to dry up. And the ground's going to get, you're not going to get anything. But the hay on there, we actually are getting germination because we're getting the dew at night. That hay traps it, it wets the seed, and it allows it to come up.
I thought you were saying no seed, just go with the hay.
No.
No.
Well, on crop ground that's sterile, you put seed on that sterile ground that's been nuked with glyphosate, you're probably not going to get much to come up that first year. So I wouldn't go out and spend thousands of dollars drilling it with a grass seed in sterile soil. I'm going to bring animals in and roll hay on it first. And then that fall, if you want to really push it, you can put some grass seed down. But I wouldn't immediately go out and put seed on on cropland, you're gonna have a wreck. Yep.
Can you speak to your soils and why your bricks are so low in Africa, or is it just your farm? And can you fix that over time? Sorry.
Yes, you can, but it's not just my farm in our area. Because so much rain, we get 28 inches a year. We grow so much grass, they can't eat all the grass, and they burn it every spring. What are you doing when you're burning grass? You're burning carbon. So they're not fixing the soil, but they can't see the wood for the trees. I'm an idiot. I've done something different, but who cares?
Yeah. Your farm has higher bricks?
Yes.
Permanently?
Yes.
Take one more question, we need to take a break. I'll kick you in the back, John.
I want to clarify, I'm sorry if I'm not getting this. Are you going to leave your bulls in the herd and just sell the cows that don't calve in the window? Or are you going to
Yes.
run two different herds?
No, not two different herds. One herd. I hate having two herds, especially in the wintertime. You talk about a pain. Yeah, you don't want to do that. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back here. I'll call.